Hi everyone, welcome to Techie World. So today I will be taking you through the concept of inheritance in Java. Inheritance, as the name suggests, is basically the behavior and the properties of the parents available to the children, right? So whatever your parents owns as of now will be transferred to you by the virtue of inheritance. That's the same concept that is available in Java called inheritance. Now, so basically, inheritance is a fundamental concept of object-oriented programming. Though we know that Java is not fully object-oriented because we have the variables in Java, right? That is not an object. That's why we call Java as a partially object-oriented programming. But to compensate the variables, we have the wrapper classes in the Java. Now, coming back to the topic that we have today, that is inheritance. So, as I said, the inheritance is fundamental concept of object-oriented programming. It allows us to create new classes that is based on the existing classes, which means the functionality that is already been built, you can build on that by using inheritance. Okay, let us take an example to understand this inheritance in Java. That is, let us say we have three classes, that is animal, dog, and cat. Now, animal can eat, right? All the animals can eat. Like animal, let us suppose animal is a class that can, the functionality of that class is eating. Now, let us talk about dog. Dog can eat also, but dog can bark also, right? Dog can run also. Let us take an example of cat also. Cat. So cat can eat, cat can run, right? So if you see the eating properties of or the eating behavior of the animal, it's common to all the animals, right? So it's a common behavior. Now, if you let's say you want to implement the same in the code, in the Java code, what you will be doing? Are you going to write this eat method in each classes? In the animal, in the dog, in the cat, or rather you will use the concept of inheritance, okay, to write this eat method in the animal and write two different classes, dog and cat, which will be implementing the, sorry, extending the animal class, right? And the dog class will have now just two method, bark and run, and cat will have just one method, run. But the eat method will be coming from the superclass, that is animal. Now, let us try to dig deeper on this. When we talk about the inheritance, that is the first point that I told you. Inheritance in Java is the most important part of the object-oriented programming. Coming to the second point, that is inheritance is a mechanism in which one object acquires all the properties and behaviors of the parent object. Now here we have a term called parent object, which simply means that let us say you have written a class A and you have written a class B. So if class B is extending class A, it means class B is a subclass of class A. Means class B is a child class of class A, and class A will always be called as parent class or superclass to class B. Coming to the third point, inheritance represents is a relationship. So, as I explained in the previous slide, you have dog, you have animal, you have cat, right? So, dog is an animal. Can we say that? Yes, dog is an animal. Cat is an animal, which means inheritance represents is a relationship, which is also known as parent-child relationship. Okay, and which is also known as superclass subclass relationships. Okay. Now coming to the next point, that is idea behind inheritance. I mean, why this inheritance is required is that in Java you can create new classes and build on the existing classes that is already there, right? So, which simply means that let us say you are developing an application where there is hundreds of functionality available. Okay, now you need to write one more functionality. Okay, and hand this project to someone. Now you can easily inherit all the 100 properties written earlier from from the particular class to a new class and write just one behavior or property in the new class that you are writing, and you have now 101 behavior of object or 101 uh, functionality of an object, right? So that's how inheritance works. That's how it reduces the code reusability, code redundancy, and it increases the code reusability. Now, when you inherit the class from the existing classes, you already have all the behaviors and the functionality that we have in the superclass. But in the subclass, you can implement the additional functionality, which simply means if you already have 100 functionality implemented in superclass and you are writing a subclass for that, and you are implementing one more functionality here, then in the subclass you have 101 functionalities. Isn't it good? Like, you are actually reducing the line of number of code, right? Now we'll take two examples to understand how inheritance can affect our coding. Okay, so in the inheritance hands-on, we have first example without inheritance, what you're going to do, and in the second example, I'll be showing you what with inheritance you will be doing. Don't worry, we have the code also for this, so I'll be explaining that in the code also. Now let us say you have a task one that you need to complete. Now in task one, to complete a task one, how do we code in Java? We write a class, we write a method. Under that method, we perform the required functionality or the required task. So that's how it is. This pseudocode has been written. There is a class A, there is a method M1, and in method M1, we are trying to solve the problem. I mean, we are trying to do the task one. Coming back to the second example, without inheritance only, like let's say you have a two task, task one and task two. Now, task one is already implemented in class A, but there is another example here, that is where task one is already implemented in A, but there is a requirement that you need task one and task two as a behavior in another class, right? Let us say the class name is B. Now, since you don't have the concept of inheritance, then what you are going to do? You are going to write a class B. You are going to write a method M1, which will be performing task 1, and you will be writing method M2, which will be performing task 2, right? Now, let us talk about inheritance now. What if we have the inheritance? How it is going to affect our codings, right? So with inheritance, we have the same problem. We have a task one that we need to complete. Now you have written class A, you have written a method M1, and you have performed the task one and set the method M1. Now, since we have the inheritance now, we got the same requirement that you need to write a class which actually do both the task one and task two, right? As it is written here. So to write that, since M1 is task one is already being performed in M1, right? Which is a part of class A. Now, to utilize the concept of inheritance, what we do is we actually extends class A in our class, which simply means by using extends keyword, you are actually inheriting all the properties and behavior of the class A. So here, when you see carefully, in the class B, I'm not writing method M1. I'm utilizing the method M1 that is already written in class A. And we are writing method M2 to do the task 2, which simply means that code reusability has increased now. Means a code written in class A is being utilized in class B, right? Also, if you see the number of line of code, right, it has decreased. It has reduced drastically. Why? Because you don't now need to write the method M1 inside the class B because it is being inherited from class A, right? Now let's see the same in the code. I have already written a class inheritance demo where we have a main method and we have written one class A which is having method M1, which is actually the task of this method M1 is to print hello world. It's a very simple application. Now we have another requirement where we have written a class B and there is a requirement that you print hello world as well as hi world, right? These two, this is task 1 for M1, this is task 2. Now if you remember, I explained you that if there is no concept of inheritance, then you actually need to write both the methods here, right? So that's why I have called, since these two methods are static methods, so it can be called without creating the object with the class name. So I'm just calling these two methods Okay. And if you run this code, you will be able to see the output here. So if you see hello world is coming from here. Okay. And these two are coming. Let me run it once again. These two are coming from class B, right? So you can see without inheritance, you have to write this entire method in the class B to get this behavior, though it is already existing in class A. Okay. Now coming back to with inheritance. Now this was the example with without inheritance. Now with an inheritance in Java, you can see I have written an inheritance demo one where we have a main method, we have a class A, okay, which is performing task one. Now since I already told you, we got another requirement to perform task T2 or task 2. So here I'm writing a class B by extending, by using the extend keyword, I am inheriting the properties of class A, which means this M1 is by default available in class B now, right? So when I need to implement the task 1 and task 2 in my new class that I have written, which is class B, I don't need to write M1 here because it is by default available. So I have written M2 method, and it is performing just one task called hi world, and hello world, that the task 1 is being provided from the method M1, which is available in the superclass. So here, if you try to understand, B is a subclass. B is a subclass, or you can call it B is a child class. A is a superclass, or A is a parent class. Now, let us run this code to understand. So if you see here, in the main method, I'm calling method M2 that is available in class B and method M1 that is available in class A with the same B. So how does this work is, let's say in the first line, B, B dot M2. So since it's a static method, so it will come to the class B and it will try to search for a static method with the name M2, and it will find it and it will print it. Okay. Now, when I'm calling B dot M1 in line number 8, let me run this again. In the line number 8, what happens is it actually goes to class B and try to find out a method, a static method with name M1, but it doesn't find one. Now it will find out if there is any superclass available to the class B. Yes, we have a superclass called A. So here it will go to the class A and try to search with the name M1. Now it found it. So it will actually print the hello world. What will be the sequence with which it will be printing? The first, we are calling them to method. So obviously it will be printing hello world, and then we are calling M1 method, so it will be printing hello world. Now, if you observe these two class side by side, you will see that in B we are only writing one method called M2, but in the previous case when we didn't have the concept of inheritance, we were writing method M1 also, right? So it means the number of line of code is reduced here. So if you see here, it is 28 line. If you see here, it is just 25 lines, right? 24, 25, because there is a space, right? And two lines. Now, so code reusability has increased here. We are not writing the same code again and again in every class. Also, the code redundancy has reduced, right? With the concept of inheritance. Now, inheritance is already explained. We will be discussing types of inheritance in Java in the next session. Okay. And I'll be posting more such informative videos on this channel. I hope you found this video helpful. If yes, please do like, share, and subscribe. Thank you. Bye bye. Take care.